Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's November 28th, 2023, and we are in the Old Testament. We're going to start with the book of Job today. Job, however you want to call it. I'm going to call him Job, hopefully consistently. We're going to read chapter 1 today. All right, so Job is from the land of Uz. We don't know who wrote this. We don't know exactly when they wrote it, but it seems like it's written around the time of Abraham, who came from Uz. Job comes from Uz. So sometime during the time of the patriarchs. Very old story. And we see that Job is a very devoted, very obedient to God. And Satan comes along and says, hey, you know what, God, if you weren't blessing him, he'd hate you. And God says, no, he wouldn't. And just to prove it to you, I'm going to let you go out and take away everything that he has. So when he has no blessings, we're going to see, does he still come to God, or does he spite God and turn and reject God? So a few things going on here. This first one, we're going to see Job's character. Job's that's the first attack. Then he's going to attack Job's prosperity and his children, and then we're going to see tomorrow that he attacks him physically. So a few things to see here. Well, it starts with God having a throne, in his God's throne room, and he's got an audience with all of his creation, and Satan is one of the people that comes to him. You go, hey, wait a minute, how is that to be? Well, Satan is an angel, therefore he's part of God's creation. He has to love God and obey God. He's figured out a bunch of ways to twist that around to serve his own purposes, and that's why he got cast out. We kind of see what the purpose of Satan was here was to test mankind, but like I said, he's kind of twisted that to the point that now he's tempting mankind. Instead of finding out if Adam would be loyal to God and not eat the fruit, he went in there and tried to drive a wedge in there and tempt him until Adam ate the fruit. That's kind of a subtle difference, but that's kind of what we're seeing here. Satan maybe goes a little too far, because again, God tells him, okay, go ahead and test Job. And he says, okay, here's the test I'm going to have for Job. I'm going to kill all his livestock. I'm going to kill all his children. I'm going to wipe out this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to tear this. I'm going to do this. So he's just kind of goes way overboard between what would be a test and to what would be an actual trial. Job is about suffering. Job suffers a lot. We just said he's going to suffer a bunch of losses right off the bat here. So what we want to see in Job is, what does he do with that suffering? Does that suffering turn him against God, or does that suffering bring him closer to God? We see that it brings him closer to God. Why do we suffer? Well, we suffer because we're human beings and we live in a fallen world. We suffer loss when a loved one dies. We suffer loss when something we cherish is taken from us. Just like God suffers when Jesus dies on the cross excruciatingly. So suffering is a part of life. It's what gives value to things. If it didn't hurt to lose something, then do I really value having it if I don't care if I lost it? So really good story about suffering and why it's necessary. Let's just go ahead and we'll get started and read it. So first, book of Job, chapter 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. And that man was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and shunned evil. And 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. Also his possessions were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very large household. So that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. And his sons would go and feast in their houses, each on his appointed day, and would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. So it was, when the days of feasting had run their course, that Job would send and sanctify them. And he would raise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus Job did regularly. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? So Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it. And then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil? So Satan answered the Lord and said, Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, Behold, all that he has is in your power, only do not lay a hand on his person. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and a messenger came to Job and said, The oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them when the Sabeans raided them and took them away. Indeed, they have killed the servants with the edge of the sword. I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, The Chaldeans formed 3 bands, raided the camels, and took them away, yes, and killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and suddenly a great wind came from across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they are dead. I alone have escaped to tell you. Then Job arose, tore his robe, and shaved his head, and he fell on the ground, and he worshipped. And he said, Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this Job did not sin, nor charge God with wrong. May God bless the reading of his word. May God bless you. Bye.